Hello and welcome to this video. A lot of people might know me as Zito from the Disgust and Resilience podcast Discord and the Nogle's Mansion Discord. I think both are excellent places to discuss anything to do with this Death Guard, whether that's competitive or any rules or anything. And it's been a really positive place recently. Uh, we've got the Codex, which is fantastic. It's really nice that we've got a lot of detachments that people are really happy to go out and try. There's a lot of inbuilt power there, and each one does play quite different. Me personally, I've gravitated towards the Champions of Contagion detachment. I think it really allows a player skill to be put out on display. A lot of focus on the attached units with all the stratagems. So a lot of questions about which characters to put with which models, who to run, and everything like that. On screen, you can see the list that I've taken to the RTT last weekend. I did end up taking the win there. I had three fun games at my local club, and I just wanted to run through some of the maybe lesser known or lesser thought of tactics that you can employ. Some of them are applicable to all detachments, but I think one in particular is very powerful with the Champions of Contagion detachment, and I did use it in two of the games at the weekend, and I'd like to show that off to you now. So what we have here, we have the Crucible battle deployment. I think it's the UKTC round 2 and round 5 layout. And what we've done is we've ended up saving our poxwalkers. If the opponent does have an infiltrate, this is even better to do. But it's often quite rare for an opponent to put an infiltration unit in the center. What we will do is we're going to put these poxwalkers just here. They're 9 inches away from their deployment line, and by doing that, we've stopped the cultists' scout move, which is going to be quite good because they probably wanted to come forward and stop us getting area denial or something like that. And it also potentially, if it's Empress Children with scouting Rhino or anything like that, it stops it going this way as well. They obviously could go down this path, but then they're out in the open, and depending on what your rest of your army makeup is, you could probably pop the Rhino based on lines of sight. So what we've done is we've plonked this Potswalker unit down, and we've tried to be as annoying as possible. So there's no way to shoot them from this angle, and to get any sort of angle on the unit down this way, we'd have to expose the unit down here, which obviously we could get angles down here, could get angles down this way. So a person is probably unlikely to want to do this. And we are also 1 inch in the wall at this point, so we can't get charged and then them say on this side of the wall. Any charges to kill this Potswalker unit would have to come either at this point, which obviously puts a massive exposure on them on this side. They could go this side as well, but it still should be a reasonable threat range for you for them not to want to do that. So this Potswalker unit is here. It does mean that if the opponent gets the good draws of no prisoners and overwhelming force, then you've given them 3 points. That's just a risk that you can take. Obviously, you could choose not to do this. This is just one of the plays that I feel can be useful. So obviously, this is just 3 units here, but a lot of armies put maybe their big shooting in this sort of area, and the infantry tends to go a little bit further back. But in this instance, let's say we do go first. We've got the ability now, because we're only 9 inches away, if we just move our models 5 inches up, we should have a 4-inch charge to that Rhino. So that means that we can potentially, with the -1 to hit plague, which we get to choose as our army rule, mean that in their first turn, they are not only going to have poxwalkers to deal with, they're also going to have -1 to hit spread across a lot of their army and potentially move blocking, which is what the aim of this move is going to be. So if we now declare a charge against the Rhino, and we get an 8, what we would be able to do is move this guy all the way around here, and we would be able to wrap this Rhino. And potentially also, if we did it the right way, we could move block. So we wouldn't be able to face the back of the Rhino because we've said that we only charge there, not the cultists. So we could bring these guys here, and then as long as we are moving close to the closest model with a pile in, we could also tag this cultist unit if we particularly wanted to. That's up to you whether you do or not. It's obviously spreading the -1 to hit into another unit and taking another activation out of them. The cultists are very unlikely to kill the poxwalkers in melee. Same with the rhino, because remember they've got -1 to hit as well. So this walker unit will survive this. You are obviously going to have to worry about any potential heroics. But if you did this correctly, you could still leave them outside of the range of the heroic, and then you'd still be able to pile in. So you're taking that threat out of the way by just charging and move blocking yourself, piling in, and tagging another unit. They're -1 to hit, and you're also stopping an activation lock. In certain instances, that heroic wouldn't be the worst case, because if that Demon Prince does make the heroic, it's got 7 attacks with a -1 to hit. It's unlikely to kill the Poxwalker unit. Yes, with the rhinos and the cultists, maybe. So you probably wouldn't do that in this case. And you obviously wouldn't do it if the unit that you are piling into or could be heroic by is going to do a lot of damage to you and kill off that Poxwalker unit. But it's just highlighting that if you can charge this Poxwalker unit into a enemy unit that isn't going to kill this Poxwalker unit, it's going to become a huge headache for them, because not only is the unit inside going to either have to disembark and then come around and deal with this Poxwalker unit, or the Rhino is going to have to fall back and then you can't get out. And everything that's going to try and shoot it means that you either fall back these two units, or you try and kill it off in combat, but you're not getting any sort of forward pressure because you put them under so much pressure, and you're spreading this -1 to hit. It means that they're going to be stuck in their deployment zone for the first turn. Where this gets particularly quite juicy is in the Champions of Contagion detachment. As I mentioned, there's a strat here called Mobile Vector. So it says your movement phase before the reinforcement step. So that means obviously before any deep strikes or anything, or any strategic reserves. Target one Death Guard character unit from your army that is not leading unit. Select one other friendly Death Guard unit, excluding battle shots units and attached units that already have 2 leaders units or one of the character units leading it. So meaning that if a Plague Marine unit already has 2 characters leading it, it can't join. It's essentially restricting anything that you couldn't do in the battle formation step. You can't do it in the game. It has to be within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of a unit that your unit can lead, as described in the leader section of the datasheet. Your unit attaches to that unit as a leader. Change the unit's starting strength accordingly. So just straight up at the gate, this stratagem is a bit of a weird one. There's lots of use cases which just aren't cleared up in the rules commentary or the core rules or anything like that. For example, if you had a Plague Marine leader that fell back and joined a unit, what does that mean for the unit? Is that unit still able to declare a charge? Is it still able to shoot? If everything like that, could a unit advance and join the leader? And then are they still able to move? Are they still able to shoot? There's lots of things that need to be clarified in the fact. I would play this as honest as possible and say if a unit advanced and joined a unit, you probably don't get to charge after that or shoot if you didn't have assault. I'm not sure on the actual specific wording. I believe there's a WTC ruling on it, but I'm not too clear on that. So I'm going to show you a use case for this, which I've figured out, which doesn't break any of those rules. And I think it can add to the previous case, which we've just shown. So we moved into a different deployment zone type here. This is UKTC round 1 currently with the sweeping engagement. And you notice we've got a couple of extra tools. We have the Land Raider and we have Typhus, who starts off in the Land Raider. I've already disembarked in his 3. So this Poxwalker deployment here again is we are 9 inches or a 9-inch charge away from this front line of units here, also potentially blocking any scout moves this way, which is good for us. And what we can do this time, because of the mobile vector stratagem, is if we move this guy up 5 again, we got first turn. So we know that we can push in this sort of way. If we didn't have first turn, the reason why the Potswalkers are sort of laid out like this is because we want to minimize their ability to kill this unit. They would really have to commit. So yes, they can see this first Potswalker, but as soon as they kill that, if they get unlucky and manage to leave one or two alive, you can take away in a way that these guys would be the ones that are alive, and there'll still be an angle down here for them to do that, but it would reduce any ability for them to shoot down there. Yes, they could still charge over here, but again, if they charge here, they're ending up in a position where you can counteract in your turn too. So it's minimizing, it's putting you in the position where you can still do what you need to do, but depending on what happens, you could potentially get lucky, roll some 5-ups where you're not supposed to, and still keep that unit alive and deny a no prisoners or a woman force or something like that. It does also open you up to Storm. You can score Storm on the first turn now as an election, but it's up to you. Again, it's three secondary that could end up biting you by doing this, but it's still potentially worth the risk. So what we would do now is, say we're going first, so we'll Typhus disembarks the Land Raider just to give him this extra 3 inches. And then he moves in a direct line as far as he can up to the unit you're going to be intending to charge, and then do the same thing with the Potswalker unit. Those guys all move up there 5 inches, and Typhus is now in coherency with those guys, which is fantastic for us. So what we can do then is roll a charge. We just declare the cultist unit, and we get an 8, which is more than enough to get in here. And now what we can potentially do with Typhus is, because if we move up 8 here, his base isn't going to, we're not going to have enough movement for his base to get in. But what we are able to do is move him right up against this wall here. And then if we leave enough space behind him, if you look here, we can put this Potswalker in base to base with this unit. And then on the pile-in, Typhus, if you leave enough space, Typhus will be able to get in, which means you've now got Typhus swinging at a unit that potentially really doesn't want to be swung upon. They're obviously been put here not expecting the first turn charge. If you can get Typhus into this unit, it's going to really end up surprising them. Again, because of the -1 to hit of the plague that you've chosen on the first turn. You also, when Typhus joins a unit, gives that unit -1 to hit in melee. So you would potentially be -2 to hit in melee. And that means that anything that's got +1 would still be -1, which is fantastic. Or you could even, if you set up like this and you've gone first and you really want to try and push the damage through, you would know that, and you could choose the -1 save contagion and sweep with Typhus then, because that becomes quite a deadly profile against something quite weak, which can potentially mean that that unit gets wiped and you pile in the the 3 inches into a second unit. Also, compared to last time, in a deployment zone which is a bit more scrunched up, they're less likely to be able to heroic you. Yes, they could heroic round to the side, and that's fine if they do that. You still got to be careful with this, but it does open up potentials, specifically in the Champions of Contagion, just because of the mobile vector strat. The extra move you get out of the Land Raider enables Typhus to potentially get into something turn 1, which can be quite juicy. As I've just shown with the infiltrating Potswalkers and Typhus sort of collaboration, there's also other things that opens up with the Champions of Contagion. Most of the strats only work for attached units, but now you do have an attached unit. So if you did have something that was going to hit you back, you can, and you still have the CP. For instance, if you had the Demon Prince of Nurgle, the mobile vectors could have been a free strat. Or if you roll the 7-up on the Talisman, you could potentially have 3 CP to play with on this first turn. So the first CP, you would have used the free strat on the mobile vectors. You could then have had the CP to reroll the charge, which I have had happen in the past. I didn't have the CP because I wasn't running the demon prints, and that 4-inch I rolled a 3, and then I had poxwalkers just stood out in the wind. There was still being a move block, so it's still useful in that situation, but not ideal. And then the powerful strat in this specific instance would be the +2 toughness. Typhus is T7, but the Poxwalkers are T4. So any fight back from a unit or in the shooting phase would be on the T4. You can use the +2 toughness strat to make them T6, which does make them a bit more annoying, and potentially use the go to ground strat on them as well in their shooting phase, which would be giving them a 6-up invuln and their 5-up feel no pain. It just makes that unit a bit more annoying to get rid of and a bit more of a pain to reliably shut down, especially that +2 toughness. It can really mount up with against the enemy shooting. Okay, so thanks everybody. If you made it to the end of the video, hopefully these tips were helpful and useful to you. There are a few more things that I'd like to go through: the Champions of Contagion, Detachment, and everything, all the fun stuff that you can do there. We'll end this video here. Again, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you do, please like and subscribe, and look out for the next one. Bye.